Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video.
Well, another Friday here at Giga Texas. It is the 23rd of June, 2023. And with some of the recent Cybertruck viewings out in California, it seems like they are really just starting to pop up everywhere. Now, interestingly enough, I got word that the casting machine structure here, window coverings, had been removed. So I thought I would take the opportunity to try to see inside and check out some of the changes that have been made inside casting since the last time we were able to see inside in January. Also, because of the walls being removed on the south end, we get a chance to look inside Stamping 2 and get some pretty good images of what they're doing inside. Now, starting up at casting, these few images give you a really good idea of what is going on. And first of all, it's very clear that two 9,000-ton gigapresses have been installed, and they have a big framework around them as well, as you can tell. Also, on that east side where we've been able to look in through the receiving doors and see that there's been some sort of slab removal and reconfiguration, these images here give you a really good idea of what is going on in there. It looks like another foundation. This one's going north to south, possibly for another gigapress. Now, as we change our view and go down to the south end, let's take a look at what we see inside of Stamping 2. Now, in Stamping 2, because the walls have been removed, we got these really good images inside. And you can tell that there are multiple stamping presses being installed in this section as well. And the bridge cranes are very obvious also. Now, the great thing is that we're able to see inside both casting and Stamping 2. And I just want to highlight the differences because sometimes I think people get confused. Now, up at the casting machine structure, that is where the gigapresses use molten aluminum injected into dies, and then in a very quick process they make the front and rear castings for the Model Y, but also now for the Cybertruck. That is part of the underpinnings of the basic vehicle underneath the skin. Now, stamping is very different, but it's also important. Stamping takes rolls or coils of steel or aluminum and stamps them out into large pieces. And this is necessary, especially for the Cybertruck, but also for the Model Y, to make various parts and pieces that go into the passenger cabin or the shell. And in both cases, that's what the castings, the front and rear, are bolted to. So both the castings and the stamping machines are vital for production of the Cybertruck and also for the Model Y. So I'm glad to be able to show you both the progress and the north, east, and also the southeast sides of the factory. Now, there is a lot more to see in the video today, so I hope that you enjoy what we see and talk about throughout the video. As always, thank you very much for your support, and I do hope you enjoy these rare inside views. Have a great weekend and take care.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, good morning, and what a day. We got some word that the casting machine structure had the window covering removed, and you can clearly see that as we approach into this northeast corner of the factory. So I'm going to take the opportunity to have this low light and well-lit interior, and let's take a look inside and see what the progress has been in the last 4.5 months since the last time we were able to look inside. So as we get to here on the east side, we'll start looking into the windows. For the first, you can see all of these castings that are just being stockpiled outside, and it's just never ending. Now you can tell there's some plastic on the windows here, but that will clear up here in just a second. At the bottom of the screen, we get a good view of some of that work for that new slab in those 3 receiving doors, and then inside this large one you can get a better idea of what that looks like. And then now we're starting to able to get views inside the windows. It's a little bit foggy, but compared to what we've seen in the past, this is really a big improvement. So as I negotiate around this corner and also this man lift down at the bottom of the screen, I'll try to give you some good views inside here. And what we're starting to see is that there's been a big change on this left-hand side of the screen. This is what I call the East Bay. There used to be DMG Mori machines in here, and also some the bridge cranes, the smaller setup ones with some of the beams and columns, but those have been removed, and it now looks like there's a new structure right in that center bay being prepared. And then on the left-hand side, you can see all of that concrete that's been removed. It looks like they are putting in 2 more bases, possibly for more casting machines, the Giga presses on that left-hand side. And it looks pretty extensive. Now the interesting thing is they used to have 2 farther to the south on that bay, but they've for some reason removed them, and now they've decided to reinstall them here closer to the north end of the structure. And clearly in that middle of the screen you can see some new machines. I'm not sure exactly what they are. They're kind of gray, being set up in that middle section. And as I turn the drone towards the west bay, here is where we see quite a bit of the changes. Now, this entire structure is a set of beams and columns that go around 2 of the 9,000-ton gigapresses. And here you can actually see both of them, but we'll continue to progress to the right, and I'll give you some better views. Also, on the center left of the screen on the ground, you can actually see some of the Cybertruck castings that have been laid on the ground. Now here you can see both of the gigapresses. You can see those kind of vertical pipes, and then sort of that black bended wires on the left, and then also in the center. Those are where the 2 gigapresses are located. You can also see those kind of the round holes on the center kind of rectangular white sections. That's where the pistons are for the big gigapresses that the dies actually slide back and forth on. So very cool. We can also see over that superstructure there's some of those bridge cranes, and that helps with maneuvering some of the smaller equipment in and out of the casting machines. Also above that, it's hard to see here, there's some very large bridge cranes for the actual dies. It looks like there's actually some white and yellow pipes along this section as well, and I think those look semi-temporary, and I think it's for airflow. Also, it's kind of hard to see, but right at the bottom of the windows there's some of the control screens that have been installed here, at least for one of the 2 of these very large gigapresses. And let me re-center the drone, and we'll get some more views inside here. And again, this is a good view of that section of the casting machines with all of that superstructure and just a lot of the supporting equipment. This is very different than what we see with the 6,000-ton gigapresses. So kind of explains why it has a completely separate and different installation methodology. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed those views inside the casting machine structure and a lot of the updates. It's great to see, and I'm also glad to be able to confirm that there are 2 9,000 gigapresses installed in this section of the factory. And the fact that we're seeing some of the Cybertruck castings is a great indication that at least one, if not both, are already in testing, calibration, and producing some of those castings. So what I want to do now is take the opportunity of the lighting, and also from a different position that I am flying the drone from, to try to give you a zoomed in view along the full length of this side of the factory. Now the power lines prevent me from getting really close in, but I hope that these images of this side of the factory, which is something I normally cannot show you at all, at least not from this altitude and looking inside the windows, but I hope that you enjoy this and it gives you a different perspective of the entire factory. Now right now we're flying along the end of the casting machine structure. And then at this point inside it, you can see how it changes, and there's a second floor. People are walking on there. This is just above the body in white section, and that entire section is also starting to get fitted out with robots and a lot of other machinery. Let me pull back briefly along the east parking lot. I want to show you what the new car staging and transportation looks like even early in the morning. This is about 5 o'clock in the morning, and you can see it's still very busy despite the early hour. Lots of trucks here picking up the Model Ys. Model Ys are being produced even now. They're being moved over. Some of them with the flashing lights are being either software upgraded or doing some other last-minute tests. And then other Model Ys are arriving here for pickup. And then these tents at the bottom of the screen is where the end-of-line crews do the final preparations before the vehicles are picked up. Also, the testing and calibration lot here on the left is also very busy. You can see quite a bit of the flashing lights. Again, I think this is for software updates and other testing. And just gives you an idea of that even at about 5 in the morning, just how busy it is here. Now, as we get closer to the building, I'll zoom back in. This gives you kind of a view, as much as I can, of what's going on in the second floor above body in white. Here's the secondary main entrance, that inverted V glass section, and it gives you an idea of what that looks like in there. A lot of robots. Some of them have been installed. Some of them are still under wrapping next to the windows along that second floor. And then you can just see just how much equipment is in there and still waiting for installation. Now, I don't know if all those robots are going to be installed just in that particular area or if they're being stored for other areas, but there are a lot of robots waiting for future assembly and installation on this part of the building. As we continue towards the south end of body in white, this gives you a good view of both the ground floor and the second floor. And now we're transitioning into the stamping machine structure. And the machines that you see on the windows on this part of the structure have been in place for about 1.5 years or 2 years, and those are what are making most of the parts necessary to build the Model Ys. And we'll continue this flight, and then I'm going to show you where the walls are being removed, where stamping 2 is being set up, and that's where all of the stamping machines and other metal parts necessary to make the Cybertruck is being final assembly. And the reason why the walls, and you can start seeing it now, that large section of the south wall is being removed, is because the building is being expanded on the south end. So we're going to transition to a little bit later in the morning now, and we'll continue the flight around the south end. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that intersection, which is part of that River Road expansion that runs onto the south side of the Cyberpond. Also, the south end of the building and how it looks today, with all of the south end being prepared for that building expansion. And we'll come back for some much closer views a little later in the video. But right now I'm going to bring the drone down over the Cyberpond, give you an idea of what the River Road looks like right now going underneath that south bridge in this kind of a large intersection for the moment. But now we can see the crews are continuing to prepare and modify this intersection at the bottom right of the screen. And then you can see where the asphalt's being applied on that new road segment. So all of this area is being reconfigured with that road in mind right now. We can also see a lot more of the materials stored on the south side here. A lot of rebar, some concrete parts, some of the wall panels that have been removed, and also some solar panels waiting for future installation. And as we continue towards the east here, you can see that intersection at the lower level and how it appears today. Also, many of the rebar square sections, the cages that are going to be used for the footings, are under construction here, along with some of those tubular rebar cages that are used for the continuous flight auger piles. As we fly over towards the southeast and the east corner of stamping, we can see that more crates have been delivered here with some more equipment. And I've seen some of the similar crates like this moved inside stamping too. So it looks like it's more for that area. Now, the lighting is not good enough to look inside stamping right now. However, as we proceed around this corner next to where the CFA pier drilling cranes are located, and then this white crane that's being used to remove the wall panels, we can get a really good view inside stamping too. Now on the ground, you can tell that the footings have been completed with concrete. You can see the mounts, the steel mounts sticking up out of the concrete. And as I negotiate around this crane, I'll give you a good view inside here. Now what you can see is multiple stamping machines or varieties of metal bending machines have been installed. The largest one is an AIDA stamping press, and then also the red painted Tesla bridge cranes. You can see those two pipes directly ahead of us. They have end caps on it. That suggests that those are going to continue through the wall and into the new expansion of the building. So I'm going to fly up and show you how the roof section looks right now with all of the weatherproof material and the roof decking removed, some of the wall panels as well, and you can tell that at least for now, the opening is going to be twice as large, almost 3 times as large as what it is right now. And it looks like crews have got all of that roof decking and the materials removed up into this kind of a section and double column area where the wall panels are. Now as I bring the drone back down, this gives you a good view of those footings on the ground and also where those ropes on the wall panels, those are going to be used, in fact they were being used later in the day to remove this next section of wall panels. And then as I come back, I'll give you another view inside this section and over across to the west bay as well. Some of the ground slab still needs to be poured in concrete there. It's still in dirt, where on the ground, the bottom of the screen, we can see what rebar is sticking up out of that ground slab. So it suggests that there's going to be some sort of internal structure inside that opening at some point. We'll fly around the continuous flight auger cranes and the drill. These have not been used in the last couple of weeks. They are just standing here being stored, but I expect to see this back in operation soon, possibly after they remove more of those wall panels on that section of the building. I'm going to pull away just to give you a lower altitude view of this south end. Some of those trailers that have been delivering rebar sitting in the middle there. Next to this trailer, we can see the rebar cages, those cylindrical ones, waiting for that CFA pier or pile system to resume so that that can help reinforce those piles. And then in this southwest corner, all of the trenching is completed, all of the white pipes and risers, and they extend along the south end of the building over near where the temporary platform used to be. The current temporary platform today doesn't look like there's a lot of activity at this moment in time, but I expect that to pick up later today. While we're here, I'll look inside and you can see what looks to be more of those HVAC ducts that have been moved in recently just on the floor there, waiting for movement within the building at some point in the near future. As we turn back towards the north, a few other things that I do want to highlight today. First of all, just some of the activity with the trucks on all of these receiving doors. Just inside that section is where they're continuing to add and assemble General Assembly 2 and 3. So that may be more of the equipment necessary for the production lines. On the left-hand side, this material staging looks like it's almost cleared out. There's just a few parts, most of which have been moved into this opening through this ramp. And again, inside this section where they're building out and finishing the production lines at General Assembly 2 and 3 on the ground, second and third floors, and also fourth floor mezzanine. The west main entrance, not really any changes today. It just looks like they're waiting maybe for the stainless steel cladding to be finished before they will be able to install it onto these steel beams and over that entry section. This is the end of line area. They have some of these white painted items that are part of the production lines, but also I want to show you, if you look inside this door, all of those lights that you see, those are lights that are used as the final checkout to check for paint defects, and do other final checks before the vehicles exit the factory right there, come over to these white tents, and then are checked in, and then they're driven over to that east side where we saw that testing calibration lot and then the new car staging location. I also wanted to show you here the windows. I showed you in the last video that several of the panes were removed. We're trying to figure out why. Well, what it looks like here is that there's a concrete pump truck getting concrete, getting ready for concrete. It's not quite operational yet, but they're going to be pumping concrete up into the third floor in this section of the building, which suggests that they're doing even more reconfiguration work and obviously concrete work in this portion of the factory. So the internal reconstruction and setup for more of the general assembly continues even in that part of the building. As we continue to fly to the north along this side of the building, I want to just point out that the entire side that we see has had the white stain installed now, or at least applied, and it goes all the way up to the corner and is now wrapping around the corner. In fact, as we get up closer, what you'll see is crews doing some pressure washing of the bare concrete wall. And what they're doing is they're cleaning it off and preparing it so that they can install the stain and then it will apply properly. As we've talked in the past, there's 2 coats of the white stain that is applied, with the blue tarps on the ground and the plastic on the windows being applied here, and then over on the other corner, we can expect to see this side of the building starting to get that white stain very soon. And as I pivot back, this gives you a really good view of the difference between the unstained and the stained section, and also the length of the building that they've already completed on this side of the structure. And as I mentioned, the pressure washing is continuing to prepare these panels for that white stain, and then the tarps and plastic is being applied over here, which is now on the north end of the building. So they're really moving along. So let's prepare to move over to the Megapack site and take a look at some of the action and changes over on that part of the construction site. And I almost forgot, I'm going to point out one of the changes next to the cyber berm here on the left-hand side of the screen. They're doing some trenching, and it looks like some white pipe installation and also a manhole cover along this entire length of this cyber berm. So it's very interesting, and it continues all the way around onto the north side as well. So another thing for monitoring and figuring out what they're doing at a later date. But here is what the Megapack site looks like today. A lot of activity on the main site. We do have these trailers and temporary tanks, and this is for contaminated or otherwise water that needs to be treated for recycling. And they use that from around different places around the site. This material staging continues to have some steel parts, some parts for cable trays, and also some more of the steel poles. Of course, the trailers and the workshops as well. As we proceed up towards the actual construction site, a few things that I want to point out on the right-hand side and top of the screen. A lot more earthwork right up underneath those power lines. It looks like it may be a road and then an intersection heading over to the electrical switch yard. On the main site, we see more of those concrete pads being installed. All of the gravel in the middle section here has been installed as well. And this is a good close-in view of the earthwork, kind of that almost like a roadway on the upper left-hand side of the screen being prepared. And then you can see where another concrete pump truck is preparing to pump concrete into that vault at the south end of the electrical switch yard. And we'll get closer views a little later in the video. As I continue to the north end, we can see more of the steel parts have been assembled. More parts are waiting for assembly in and around where these cable trays are located. Also looks like there's small trenching being installed around on the ground where all of the steel parts are located. And of course, we talked about those four large steel poles that have been installed around what kind of forms the perimeter of this particular installation. And here's a good view looking back to the south along the section where it has all the steel parts, the gravel where the megapacks themselves will be installed, and then all the concrete pads where the transformers for the power walls will be installed at some point in the very near future. We can also see the conduit sticking up out of the ground. These form eventually 8 individual conduit trenches, and that will connect into groups of the megapacks for a total of 68 once it's completed. As we fly up over the power lines, a few things that I want to show you here. On the middle of the screen, you can see more of that trench work with a water pipe. It's a concrete pipe that's part of the water management system that supports the megapack and the electrical switchyard location. And then here we see crews in a pit providing or installing 2 more concrete vaults. This is where electrical conduit proceeds to the south next to Tesla Road to similar concrete vaults like this, and then over to the die shop and the battery cathode shop, and then the conduit will continue up here where there's a small excavation along this side of the temporary switchyard to the new switchyard. On the south end, the underground vault, it looks like crews not only have the yellow forms installed, but also in that section they have some of the scaffolding. You can see the crews up on top. They're preparing to get the concrete poured, and that's why that concrete pump truck is there. On the upper left of the screen, you can see where the conduit stops right now. That extends over near the megapack and then south to the main building. And then this is a good view overall of how this south end appears. So let's proceed over to the battery cathode and die shop section and take a look at the progress on this side of the site today. They continue to widen the west side of this area. Also on the battery cathode plant itself, the windows have been installed on the east and north side, and they're preparing to do so on the west side, as you can tell. Also, you can see work inside those 5 receiving doors, that larger receiving door on the left, and then the 2 doors for personnel. As I move over to the cell test lab, we see more work continues on this roof section, although inside it looks like they've got that section now covered up. My previous video, we could see some electrical conduit and other pipes in that area. On the east side of the battery cathode plant, this entire section that's been graded, we see more of that work with another excavation to the north as part of this side, and on this south side we can see what looks to be a shape of a building foundation emerging. We can see that yellow moisture barrier, so that's going to be more rebar and concrete in that section. We can see some of this area has already had concrete poured and a lot more rebar, and it looks like they're preparing risers now, so that may be some sort of wall structure being put in. And then on the south end, we see this underground vault being created. You can see those yellow forms. The rebar is in place, and soon we should start seeing concrete being poured. I don't know the purpose of this structure, but based on how much rebar and the reinforcement for the portions of the ground slab that we can see right now, there's going to be something heavy, whether it's machinery or equipment, but it's interesting, and I do not have any information on a permit or otherwise to tell me what that is at this time, but I'll continue to try to research that. I'm going to position the drone to fly down the alleyway to show you some other progress. In the center, you can see the trenching with some of the pipe work that's being installed, and it looks like the trench work is being filled back in. The new ground slab has all of the rebar and the formwork, so soon we should see concrete poured. And as I stay low and go over the vaporizers, I want to give you a good view of the work on the roof section here with the graded materials. Quite a bit of the red pumps have been installed, a lot more pipe work, and a lot of other connections going on this side, and it's all looks like some of it is going to be connected into those Evapco fan units as well. On the bottom of the screen, we could see that there was more trench work going on, and also that asphalt that was placed in last weekend as a temporary measure. And looks like, again, that trench work is being filled in down the middle of the alley. And then this is another good view of the chiller plant from this perspective, and all the work that continues to be done on the ground level as well. While we're here, I'm going to give you a good close-in view of this new slab that they're putting on the outside of this large door. You can see the gantry rail system that extends inside. Once this is poured, there'll be a rail system that extends all the way outside, and that'll aid with heavy machinery moving inside and outside of the portion of the factory right here. Now, as we fly along the west side of the die shop, again, you can see that temporary asphalt road. Also ahead of us, this graded section continues to be prepared and widened, and also just extending that material staging yard to the north. And also, with all of the tree removal that we've seen near the old house, I think we're getting close to the point where they're going to grade that section, remove the house, and that whole area will be flattened out, very similar to what we see right now. The material staging continues to be very busy. These large white and blue items are part of that TKS painting system. Some of it looks like it has been moved inside since my previous video. And then here, what I'm showing you is in the right middle of the screen is where a large tree was. We saw it being prepared to be moved on my previous video. And then here is where it has been moved to, right next to this truck with the Model Y. So pretty nice to see. And now we know where that tree was relocated. So that pretty much ends a very early day for me, and I hope you enjoyed the inside views, both on the northeast and the southeast sides, and also everything that we talked about as well. Again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend, and take care.